Som noget helt unikt har Aarhus Tech også fået etableret et samarbejde med Birmingham City University, der hører til blandt verdens førende, blandt andet når vi taler motorsport. Uddannelsesleder Torben Vad fra Aarhus Tech gav de britiske studerende en gæsteforelæsning. Englænderne kan nemlig også lære noget af folkene fra Aarhus Tech. De studerende bliver også vist rundt i de spændende afdelinger på universitetet. Under den 6 dage lange tur til det engelske blev der dog også tid til et relevant adspredelse i form af offroad-kørsel i små buggies. Dagen efter stod der fabriksbesøg på skemaet, og det var en helt speciel fabrik, nemlig stolte og klassiske Morgan, der ikke er som de andre. Vi startede dagen med et besøg på Morgans eget museum, hvor en kustode fra fabrikken viste rundt og fortalte. Der blev også udstillet en for os danskere særlig spændende bil. En af de 10 Plus-8-modeller, bemalet af kunstneren Christian von Hornslet i stil med BMW's Art Cars.
There are 3 basic versions of the Morgan that we're making. The one you see here is the new Morgan 3-wheeler. We introduced this last year, and it's now in full production here at the factory. So we've got the new 3-wheeler, the classic cars which you're about to see, and then a very quick, fast, exciting machine called the Aero Supersports. The Supersports is way up there with the likes of Ferrari and Lamborghini in terms of performance and specification. And we're going to head right to the very top and go into the first workshop up there on the right. Well, this is the chassis shop where we begin building all of the cars. What you see here is an aluminium aero chassis. This is the chassis that has been used on the Aero 8, the Aero Max and the current Aero Supersports. Now, in complete contrast to the Aero models that we've just been looking at, down this end of the workshop we've got the traditional Morgan sports cars. And the cars that you see being made here are being built in very much the same way as they would have been made for the last 30, 40 odd years. Very little has changed in the construction. They use a steel chassis, a simple ladder frame. These days the steel is all galvanized to give the car so much better corrosion resistance. Now, these chassis are made by another local firm just over near Ross-on-Wye in Herefordshire, and they were brought into the factory as a simple galvanized steel frame. One of those frames is placed onto the trestles, and then over the course of a couple of days it's built into the complete rolling chassis by the craftsman here. Well, this is the wing and body shop. This is where we're fitting the bodywork to the chassis. Over here you've got the traditional cars. The chassis come down from the workshop above. Down there on the right-hand side you can see the panelled bodies, and one of those will be fitted to the chassis. Then the wings are added, and finally when the car arrives down here we're fitting the bonnet panels. And the bonnet panels are all handmade out of sheet aluminium and then trimmed to fit these cars individually. And these are all the tools you need to do it. Simple panel beaters, hammers, using traditional techniques.
Faktisk er hver Morgan så unik, at kølerhjelmen fra den næste bil på samlebåndet ikke passer på den forrige. Og nu skal vi se, hvordan bagskærmene laves.
So we start off with 3 flat panels of ash, a little bit like this. We'll take 3 of those and glue them together on the bench behind using a modern polyurethane glue. And then with the sandwich of 3 pieces of timber, whilst the glue is still wet, we'll put the 3 pieces into this end of the jig first and simply bend the whole lot round into the jig. The jig is closed and clamped together. And they'll remain in here for about an hour and a half to 2 hours. The technique has been used since the mid-1930s. Just before we head on, the bench opposite is where we polish up some of the beautiful decorative items for the cars. Well, this is the new 3-wheeler workshop where we're constructing the machine that we launched last year. Now, of course, Morgan's became famous making three-wheelers back in the 20s and 30s. And we've now reintroduced that model with a very modern twist. So here you've got a tubular steel chassis. That is placed up on the trestles, and we're now adding the suspension and steering components, the electrical installation, and fitting the engine and transmission. The engine is a 2-litre unit made by the American company S&S, about 115 brake horsepower from that 2-litre V-twin. Well, we're now in the last of the workshops. This is the Aero 8 shop and was built about 11 years ago to give us increased manufacturing capacity when it came to building the new Aero. And it's here that each car gets a thorough quality control check. It'll also get a thorough clean and a wax polish before it's taken up to the dispatch bay. The car that you see here is a rather special machine. I mentioned earlier that we're now using the aluminium bonded chassis in a new car called the Plus 8. The aluminium aero chassis, but with a traditional Morgan body on it. And this is an example of the new Plus 8 model, which should be in production later this year.